Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, a full-service digital agency. If you want to grow with a premium agency and have the ability to work with Jordan directly, then learn more at neuralle.com/media and request a callback. That's neuralle.com/media.
My name's Jordan Michaelides and I'm the host of Uncommon, a show that asks the why on business, current affairs, media and sport. If you like this episode, do of course like and subscribe. This will help the YouTube algorithm work out whether you like this type of content. To find all previous guests, just head to neuralle.com/uncommon. For podcast audio, search Uncommon on all your good podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For social, keep up to date with behind the scenes at uncommon_show. With all that being said, let's get into the episode. My guests this week, Nicole Rosenberg, interior designer and founder of Liberty Interiors. You're enjoying homeschooling at the moment?
Look, how long do you have for me to answer that question? I'm keeping it together. That's where I'll leave that. I'm keeping it together day by day. And there's a lot of self-talk going on in my head just to get me through.
I was trying to look for things like it was really interesting speaking to Annabelle, Prue and others around dirt or things that we can get on the guest to sort of move into the conversation. Apparently you're squeaky clean. Like there's nothing bad here. There's no ham and cheese hot pockets like Lana. There's no obsession with chocolate referenced. I've got here, loves fashion, loves to cook, no bullshit. Plants in every room though. Is that going well during this moment?
That's true. Actually, what some people have referred to me as is Martha Stewart. I am a bit Martha Stewart-y. So, I'm a real kind of home presentation kind of girl. And I've also got with a side of OCD. So, you know, the kids being around all the time and in the kitchen and I have to have everything clean. Like I literally just got pantry labels for clear jars, which you can see through, but I just got these beautiful labels to show what's in the jar, but you can see it as well. But I just like the look of the label.
Is your husband like that as well? Does he like,
no.
Is he conscientious? No?
No.
Wow.
So that's, a real issue between the two of us. But, he leaves his like size 14 runners around on the floor and I trip on them and it makes me angry.
Because Lauren, my partner, and I are very conscientious, which I think it works very well together.
That's a nice synergy.
She's more conscientious than I am, but it works out well. So we don't have those issues and we both have that appreciation for the labels on the jars.
Yes.
You know, there's no conversations around why did you do that? Why did you waste the money on this? Because it makes total sense.
Exactly. There was one time where my husband, we really don't fight much, but there was like a time where we had a fight. It was like years ago, and he knew the way to get to me in that he mixed all my nuts together in the jars, and I got so angry and I threw all the nuts out. So he knew how to really hurt me
to you,
by mixing my nuts.
Mixing your nuts. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I was trying to think about that recently. Like because we've been together for about 12 years now. Most of the fights, I reckon with most couples, it's to do with personality differences. I think so. Like, I mean, in our instance, it's been mainly because she's more introverted and I'm more extroverted. So there's going to be clashes there. And, you know, as you mentioned, that you have friends and other couples who one person will be really clean and the other who won't. And so it'll get brought up at dinner conversations.
Correct.
And all of a sudden you're shaming the other person.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's actually a real issue with me in that I feel a little bit anxious if things are not clean around the house. And then once I've gone around and cleaned everything and made everything perfect again, I have a sense of calmness. So it is actually a bit of an issue, but I just can't help it. That's the way I am.
Yeah, I actually had this recently when I found out I had anxiety a few years ago. Apparently, some people just like are higher on the spectrum of being like we've all got a little bit of OCD-ness if you're very conscientious, if that makes sense. And it doesn't mean you have OCD. It's just like you need that to concentrate. I'm the same. I can't have my desk or, you know, like if there's a lot of rubbish downstairs, I can't deal with it. It has to go out. It has to be not seen or noticed. Did you think of your childhood? Did you always have that as a kid? Or did you first notice that at a certain point?
I always think about when it kind of started, and I really think it started when we moved houses. We moved into obviously a bigger house than what we were in, and I remember that night I stayed up until like 2:00 in my room making everything. This was when I was like 11, making everything perfect in my room.
Wow.
And I remember I couldn't get to sleep until everything was in place. Look, and I'm also a Virgo, and I believe all Virgos are the same. We're all particular. Yeah,
right. So the room, what was it about it? It was just are you saying you had to unpack everything?
Unpack everything.
Wow, okay.
And that was 11. That's early to start with your OCD tendencies.
Well, how does because I was thinking, I always like to guess about like what do they want to be when they're adult. You know, predominantly when they were a kid. And I noticed you wanted to be a checkout chick at Coles.
All I did when I was little was play like Coles checkout chicks, and I'd go and label everything around the room with prices, and then I would get people to bring me the item, and I would just stand there with like I don't know, maybe my mum got me like a play checkout machine.
Like a register.
And I could do that all day long.
How old were you when you thought this?
Oh, mate, it's around the same age. I reckon maybe like 8 to 12-ish. I'd be playing checkout chicks all day long.
So was going to Coles like an event for you?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved watching the ladies press all the buttons. Because it wasn't swipe then. It was like literally you had to press the price in.
Yeah.
And I just loved it.
And they still had the roller things where they could check the code for whatever vegetable. Now it's all just on a touch screen. Although I found an IGA that had one of those recently. It was very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, you must let me know where that is. I'll go.
I'm pretty sure it is IGA down in Dramana because my in-laws live down sort of on the peninsula.
An old-fashioned
like an old roller.
Call them? Oh, yeah.
And you have to look up the code. And the funniest is when they ask you, like, what a turnip is. And that's when you know you're dealing with a 16-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really funny. So did you have, like, a favourite aisle at all or area of the store at Coles?
I can't say I did. I think I just loved the general nature of product in the store.
Yeah, right.
And the more things that people could bring to me that I could check through the checkout, the happier I'd be.
What did your parents do?
I remember that so vividly.
What did your parents do growing up?
My mum was, she was like a PA, and my dad was in insurance. Do you remember AMP?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, but it's not really. It's like old school. Oh. But I remember also like going into my dad's office and in the city and just loving all like the stationery that he had. And we would always just be able to take all the stationery home. Just it was such a simple life back then. That was really where I got my joy from.
It was. Life was definitely simpler.
Life was simple.
The AMP, that wasn't on Spring Street, was it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, because Lauren's dad worked, I'm pretty sure, at AMP or no, it was an insurer that I used to have as a client.
West Farmers? Is
No,
another one?
it wasn't West Farmers. It was that building that got turned into 35 Spring Street. It had been an old corporate building for years. And I can't remember the name of the insurer. Actually, do you know what? I think it was AMP. I think he just did a cadetship there and that was it.
Right.
But yeah, working in insurance was like the thing back in the day. That was the industry, insurance.
Yeah.
Or you're a lawyer. It's like why my Greek father always impressed on me that I had to get into accounting. You're going to be an accountant. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I know. The same thing with my parents. I mean, I studied occupational therapy for 4 years because my Jewish parents wanted me to do something in the medical field.
Yeah.
But I was actually a very creative person, but that's what my parents pushed me into. And back then, you know, there was no social media, so you couldn't just make up your own business and, you know, pop it on an Instagram account and build from there.
Back then, being an entrepreneur was looked down upon. You were a profession who started your own business. I mean, my dad was a printer. His dad was a printer. His dad was a printer. His in-laws were printers. There's always something that like runs in the family. Did you have siblings as well?
Yeah.
Were they all in the medical field or did they get into the medical field?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
my brother's a financial advisor.
There you go. So you did occupational therapy. One thing I know is I was obviously doing my research. So Little Liberty comes along in Jan 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I think that at the time you basically started creating like little babushkas.
Yeah.
Is your family like Russian Jewish?
No, not Russian.
Okay. Because Lauren's family, they're like Polish, Russian. There's a little bit of Jewish in there. But I found it interesting that you were making these little babushka dolls and you decorated the belly with, was it Liberty of London fabrics, and that's where sort of Little Liberty came from.
Yeah.
Tell us about life in between Jan 2005 and finishing up in occupational therapy. How did you eventually find yourself there?
So I think it was all around when I started having kids. So I had Ruby 16 years ago and stopped working. And then I was at home just with Ruby. And I've always been a worker. Like when I was 13 and I was able to work, I started working. I had like 3 jobs and I built my way up in like the bakery industry. Like I started at Baker's Delight. Then I went to Brumby's. Then I went to Laurent. And then I don't know, I was big into the bakeries back then. So I've always worked and I love working. So when I was at home with Ruby and just being a mum and doing nothing else, I found it hard to just focus on that. So that's when I started making the babushka dolls. And because I'm a creative person, it gave me lots of joy doing those. And I had an account on Etsy.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and that kind of got me through until probably when Millie was born. And then I just started doing my kids' rooms up and obsessing about those. So then that kind of, my creative moved on to the rooms. And then my friends started asking me to do their rooms. And that's literally how it started.
Yeah, well, that was interesting to me because, you know, the first sale is always interesting. You get someone who asks you, how did you do this thing? Oh, maybe I can do this for you. Did they come to you and say, we'll pay you to do it? Or did you just, at the time, you were just like, no, that's fine. I'll help you out and we'll just do this together. How did that first, because I'm trying to get an understanding of, you know, when you got to that stage where you're like, okay, this is repeatable. This is a business. This isn't just a hobby.
Oh, pretty early on. I think even the first friend, they said, we'll pay you. And I thought, and now I really think from then on, I just started charging people. I didn't really think to do it for free. But I know now, like starting in the field, you do have to do things for free because you've got to get content.
Yeah.
So when I give advice to kind of up-and-coming decorators or designers, and if I was doing it again now, I would do lots for free and get photography and get content.
Yeah.
To start with. But back then, I don't know, maybe my friends didn't want me to work for free, which was nice.
That's nice. Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, do you still have a client back from those early days that you've done work with in the last few years?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, like one of my clients who is a friend, I've done so much work for, and I recently just have redone their kids' rooms and her main bedroom. And she was one of my first so long ago.
Okay.
So definitely repeat customers, lots of repeat customers.
What were the sort of highs and lows of that period? Like how long until this became a full-time job where it overtook your life and you were no longer just mum at home who was doing this thing on the side?
I probably don't know when that kind of turned over, but it was really early on. It really was very early on. Like when I started. But back then there was only blogs. There was no Instagram. So I started with a blog. But for me, it was a huge part of the business was word of mouth. And also the community that I'm in is very supportive. And if you do a good job somewhere, word kind of spreads like wildfire. And that's how I started.
When you say the community, is that the suburb you're in, the Jewish community? Jewish community. Yeah. Yeah, we've got a good friend of mine, Dan Monheit, who runs an agency, probably the biggest independent agency here in Australia. We've had him on a few times. And he said something similar. He said that the way that the Jewish community gets around people is unbelievable. Yeah. Like I think like the biggest, one of the biggest brands they landed recently was Kogan. I mean, he knows Ruslan from the school community that they're in, from being involved in Jewish community groups. Yeah, they're massive. Oh, Kogan. It's huge. Yeah. And it's just really, really interesting. And I remember because they were over for drinks just before we all got locked down. So we were talking about this exactly, and how that he reckons without that they wouldn't have been as successful as they were. Yeah. I know. In the early days, we even purchased things from Kogan in the early days. Yeah. I remember funny. He was telling me that like in the early days, Kogan used to just rock up at like community events and be like, hey, we've got this deal going for these TVs and we've got 30 or 100. And it's, you know, like here's what you can buy it at Harvey Norman for, but we sell it for this amount. So it shows how, that innate hustle. 100%. Yeah. The only thing with me is that it wasn't calculated with where I've got to now. It all came so organically, and I don't do it for anything other than me being happy and making someone else happy. That is the only thing I do this for. Like I actually just said to Annabelle, we were talking about something else, and I said, I'm not driven by followers, which I'm really not driven by followers. That does not make me happy. And I think because I'm 42 now, I can really zone in on what makes me happy. And it's when my client walks into the room and they would start crying, and then I'd start crying. And that is like my high, my drug, you know. So I'm a little bit different, I think, to other influencers out there. Well, that kind of stuff doesn't make me happy. Well, what was interesting is I remember there was an interview I did with two people in the real estate industry. And so Marty Fox was the one that really changed my perspective. He runs White Fox Real Estate. Yes. But Jonathan Hallinan was before him. And those two episodes in parallel they were about a year or so ago, and they were a real eye-opener for me because I had this whole mentality of like, you know, the crazy billionaire entrepreneur or multi-millionaire entrepreneur. And it becomes like a meme in your head, and this idea of, you know, you've got to become like this or that. And when I did Jonathan's interview, he's obviously very successful, but there are regrets that he has in life. And then you look at Marty and sort of similarly in a lot of your interviews, you always mention family first. And that was something that Marty had as well. So it's sort of like one of those things, if you've got that family first approach checked off in your head, everything else just becomes pure enjoyment and
100%.
your job isn't really a job. It's just fun.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right. I think when you've got a family, that definitely does come first. And all the Instagram stuff, for me, I can really put into a box and not get sucked into it. Because I know a lot of people get sucked into the feeling of likes on a post and constantly posting, and it takes over their lives. Whereas I have got a really healthy relationship with Instagram in that I don't post anything personal. I don't post my kids, my husband. It's literally I only post work stuff. And I feel like I can really cut that off and put that in a box, and I don't think about it all the time. And that's the only way I think I could be in this industry with that influencer title. Otherwise, it would drive me crazy.
Interesting. So you almost like compartmentalize it.
100%. And I'm so glad that I can do that, because so many people can't do it, but I really think I've got a hold on it and how to handle it.
Yeah. That's actually a really, really good innate skill set.
Oh, I'm so happy with my skill set, honestly.
Yeah, like
That's
Gemma
my
Watts.
best thing.
Gemma Watts we've had on, she's one of the only other people that I've met that can really do that.
I know.
There's very few people that can do that. They can't. I don't think I've ever seen her partner on Instagram, ever. Like I actually thought at one point, does he even exist?
Yeah. People
And
wouldn't
I
know
tease her
anything
for
about
that.
me personally.
Yeah. And I mean look, everyone's different, but I can see how that would be a very, very valuable trait. Now, speaking of personal things, I found it really interesting. You know, obviously your interior service is focused on, well, it's residential, commercial, it's everything. But the thing that at least most of the interviews seem to be focused on is kids' rooms, teens' rooms, etc. And I found it really interesting because I remember when my parents, they built their first really, really nice house. So you can imagine growing up in Bentley, Moorabbin, they didn't have much money growing up. They became successful in business, and so they were able to afford to buy a house in Brighton. It took them bloody 2 years to build it. It was a horrible build in terms of time. But when they got to it, they really had this opportunity to showcase, you know, all the hard work that they put in, why they wouldn't catch up with friends on weekends all the time, et cetera. And so for my mum, that was getting an interior designer to really go all out on the house. And I remember I was probably about 14, 15. And so, you know, no surprises, I would have been a pain in the ass to deal with in terms of leaching even things like what color do you want the feature wall to be and stuff like that. So I was very curious, how do you try and involve kids, particularly the more reserved ones? What sort of psychological tools have you developed over the years to get that information? Yeah.
Well, I think I'm very personable with kids, and the thing is that when you're dealing with kids, is that you're also, it's 50% the kids, 50% the mums.
Yeah.
So I've really got to work the two of them. And it's funny because sometimes the mum wants things and sometimes the kids. It's a really fine balance. But I definitely think that getting kids involved and me meeting them and working out, you know, if they hate any particular colour or if they've got hobbies, you know, that they want to include in their room. It's all about just communication and also just having a laugh, like making it fun. Don't make it so serious. I'm all about having fun. Otherwise, I won't do it.
Well, what has it taught you about dealing with people? Because we're all just really big kids at the end of the day.
Well, you know, for me, when I'm taking on a client, there's sometimes like red flags now. And I just,
Oh, right.
yeah, like if someone's being too controlling with things, I just go, here, I'll give it back to you and you do it. Why did you hire me, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And then there's someone like Alana Wilkinson, who I'm working with at the moment. She's like a dream client. I said she's going to get my Dream Client Award this year. She doesn't even look at anything I send her. She goes, I trust you, babe. You just do it. So that's where my wings can like expand and I can fly and do what I really want to do. And it always results in something much more special than when the client is involved in every single step.
Mm.
I've also got a client at the moment, a great client who, again, she said to me, I'm doing an apartment for her, and she goes, I just want to be on one of those shows and walk into the apartment and it's all done. We trust you. So I'm literally just, I'm doing the whole apartment without her really knowing anything, and she is just happy to let me do it.
Yeah, and that trust thing is really important. I mean, that's with the agency we run, that's like purely what we focus on, trust and authority. And a lot of times it's just because that person is way more skeptical and they're harder to convert in terms of passing over that trust. But also someone like Alana, she's, you know, she knows you. She knows you really, really well, which is very, very valuable because she just implicitly trusts you. I think we actually spoke about this in our interview. Yeah. She's just like, and also because she's a professional and she also understands that sometimes for her in professional services, it's just nice to have someone just relax and let them sort it out and go with the flow.
100%, but always the result is better. I know, but the results are always better because I find when people start to change like just little things, colours, then it changes the whole aspect of the room and then it doesn't gel as well.
So how do you then deal with that type of person in terms of, you know, if they're really skeptical or guarded or whatever?
This is going to sound bad.
How do you sort of, you know?
I'm very honest, but I will do that job and then I won't work with that client again. I'll get through that job that I've started and do whatever they want to do, but then I won't take the client on again if they come back to me.
Do you know, you mentioned before about sort of handing the work back. Do you now have sort of this process where as early as you can, you sort of say, look, I just don't think that we should work together? Nothing personal?
There's been, I can only really think maybe of two over how many years have I been in business? 12 years that I've had to do that too. Usually I just bite my lip and I get through it politely until I get to the end. And then, as I said, I just wouldn't take that client on again. But I want to be as professional as possible. Like I don't want to leave someone in the lurch unless they're really annoying me. I can always kind of work with them and get to a point that I'm okay with.
Yeah, because we're trying to quantify internally, like what is that point where that person fully trusts you? Like I have it with my tailor. P. Johnson Taylor's in the city. Yeah. I will just go in and I just want to speak to Tom. Yes. You know, there's about 4 or 5 other guys there. I know them really, really well, but I like Tom.
Yep.
And, you know, if I'm choosing a fabric or a style or whatever, he's like, yep, we can do this, we can do that. And you just genuinely trust his guiding motion.
I know. How much better do you feel?
It's great because it removes the stress completely.
Mm.
You know, it's what actually we spoke about with Lana, and the key competitive advantage that you guys offer is that when a person is willing to do it for something that is a stressful event in their life and important, they're willing to sort of release the reins a bit and just sort of go with you.
Yeah.
Which is very, very valuable.
Agree. I think if you're engaging someone like a me or a Lana, then you should hand over those reins. Otherwise, don't engage a professional.
Yeah. It's a good point. No, but that's what Lana said. She said you're no bullshit. So
I know.
that makes sense. But logically it makes total sense, but sometimes there's just people who just don't get that.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of people who don't get things, when you get the child that just wants their room to be all about Frozen, the feature wall is all Frozen, everything Frozen. How do you sort of incorporate their own interests while ensuring that the long-term sort of marketability of the house and the room is still there?
Look, I have never put in a Dora or a Frozen character or Diego, anything Wiggles. I've never, ever, ever done that. And I just won't do it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. So
if they want to do it, it's on their own accord.
Exactly. So I would do the room, and then if you want to put something in after, that's fine. But I would never specify anything commercial like that. I just can't do it.
Be funny. So you've never had anyone sort of in the midst of it just whack up some Frozen or Dora or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I don't know what happens after I leave the client's house, but when I'm there and have finished the room, there's nothing like that in the room.
Yeah.
You know what? They can always do like something. If kids are really full on about that, I always say do something that's not permanent, like get a pillow or a blanket or some pillowcases. But I can't stand all of that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm intrigued then around not so much your principles and your process when it comes to design. I mean, I could assume that when it comes to the design service, you come in, you assess a space, that person may or may not have built a Pinterest or an Instagram profile around that design, but I would assume someone like yourself would start doing that. You're getting color palettes for walls or for features, and then you start building out the principal elements of the room. I know that color is a big thing for you.
Yep.
Being an extension of your own or being an extension of someone's personality, but you also don't sort of shy away from practicality. So you regularly reference in interviews like Officeworks, IKEA, Target, Kmart. Target, by the way, is underrated. It's very sad that it's becoming Kmart, but the interiors section has some good stuff. My partner's bought some great glassware from there.
Yeah.
What are your principles generally for approaching a job?
Look, my jobs really depend on budgets and how much people want to spend. So I can get really creative. I just did a really good IKEA hack for a client. All the black and rattan cabinetry that's very in at the moment?
Yeah, love it.
So I just did an IKEA hack that's worked out really well, and it looks like something that you'd pay $3 or $4 for. So I can get really creative with hacks. But then on the other hand, I've got clients that don't have budgets. I've got two kind of groups almost. So I've got the really high end, and I've got they couldn't even be classed as low budget, but like just
aspirational.
Yeah. But I really do enjoy having the challenge of making things look high end on a budget. And I'm good at that. I'm very savvy, I guess you could call it. In terms of the process, I go to a client's house, discuss kind of what they think that they want, and then I do mood boards, or if they need, I can do 3D renders. If they need more help visualizing exactly what it's going to look like. So usually the process is really pretty quick. I'll do a mood board for every room. I've got some great clients at the moment. I'll send a mood board and it's like, yep, great, go.
Yeah.
And it's such an easy, quick process.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Pinterest is amazing for that.
Amazing. Do you know what's funny with Pinterest? This is where my OCD comes in again. I love to pin things and I feel okay once it's pinned. It's almost like I've bought it. So if it's in my Pinterest, I feel fine about it.
You feel safe. Yeah. That's so funny.
Oh.
But Pinterest is so handy like that. Like I'm really into, so it's great for men's fashion because, it's just great for fashion. But I'm really into bonsai. So I have like 8 or 9 bonsai that I make, and it's really good for pinning like tools or styles of bonsai.
Are you talking bonsai plants?
The plants, yeah.
Wow, that's very specific.
It is very specific. I never thought it would be in there, but only until I downloaded Pinterest and I Googled, windswept bonsai juniper.
Huh.
And the first thing that comes up is Pinterest, and it goes straight into the app. And I'm like, how did I not think about this?
Yeah, wow.
I can't believe I didn't think about this. And it's just, it's the amount of detail there is amazing. I think that anything visual now, it's my go-to. And my partner, being a creative, will say, told you so.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you don't really realize. And Pinterest is a massive platform now.
Yeah.
I don't think people really realize that.
Yeah, no, I love Pinterest.
We have a client, Spence and Rutherford, a handbag company.
Yes, and, I know them.
There's you're sort of around the Malvern area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to have a store on High Street. The designer, Kim, she loves Pinterest, lives by it.
Yeah.
For all her mood boards. And it used to literally be on a board on her desk. Like all that stuff used to be pinned on a board.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's all just, you feel like you've got it in your wallet. The wallet on, yeah. It's so good for referencing things as well. I totally agree.
So style-wise, like you mentioned, you must have an immense amount of different boards. Here's what I've picked up over the different interviews, because it's always really, like, I know that you like Kelly Wursler.
Yes.
So I know that's for sure a thing, because you've mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
I know you prefer older houses as opposed to modern houses. I know you like colour.
Yeah.
No trends unless clients ask for it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting reading interviews and how they're all different, and they'll start brandishing like terms that you like she's really into arts and crafts, or she's really into this or that. All I get a sense of is you like everything design, and it's just dependent on the situation.
That's so true.
So how would you what's the key elements of your style? How would you define it in your own words?
It's a really good question, because I do very modern houses, and then I do traditional houses, and then I've done like kind of the Hampton style house. I did a really big project down in Flinders where it was a little bit more of that Hamptons style. I think it's still all very relatable though. Like when you look through my Instagram feed, it still all feels connected. I think maybe in my use of colour, and also with my art, I love art and, bringing personality into a space with vibrant art pieces. I'm not sure I don't know what my style would be, because it really depends on the client, and I can do an array of different styles. But people always say to me, it still looks like very Liberty interiors, which I don't know what that means.
I don't know how they condense that. That's very interesting, because I've tried to determine what it is. I think your style is flexibility. There's definitely the color element. Color will always be there, but then you could argue a lot of interior designers focus on color.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like I think reading and looking at your work, the thing that seems to stand out is a very practical but style conscious approach. Like it is, none of your work is bad. That's the thing I noticed. so that's a good thing. No, but sometimes you can be, sometimes a client can really end up making some work look bad.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Maybe it's just that flexibility to work in whatever environment that makes it all look good.
Yeah, true. And I think the other thing with me is that I've got older kids, and I know that when sometimes I'm with younger families, I'm always being really practical about what it's going to look like when the kids are older. And they're not, sometimes the younger families don't think like that, but it is so different from when they're little to when they're growing into their tweens. But I'm kind of always looking into the future for the clients, whereas they're not. They look at the now.
Yeah, because they're in it.
Yeah, I think that's a really big difference with the way that I design kids' rooms as well.
Yeah.
Like looking for the long term.
Maybe then it's a not rational. Maybe it's a what's the word I'm looking for? A level-headed approach. You're giving someone a sense of life outside of just the little bubble that they're in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like even when I do nurseries, I'm always thinking about when the kid's going to be out of a cot, and that's only 2 years from when they're born.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that way when I'm designing.
Yeah, and they can't see that.
They don't see that.
All they see is, the next month ahead of them, the fact that they're giving birth to a little human.
Exactly. But I do always think into the future. And I think it's good that I've got older kids, because otherwise you don't know. You don't know what you're in for.
Yeah, you've lived life.
Yeah.
You've had life experiences.
But also I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that I am level-headed. Like I can take emotion out of everything. And I am very level-headed, like a lot of people say that about me.
Yeah, no bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
When you think about marketing, you've sort of, like Lana, you've gone through that initial, when blogs were at the end of their heyday, to when Instagram became a thing. So if you started in 2005, you probably got a couple of years until I think Instagram came around 2013. So you got maybe 5 to 8 years of the blogosphere.
Yeah.
The early days of the blogosphere would have been the late 90s, sort of early 2000s. That would have obviously set you up. And then Instagram comes around, which would have been very different. Even Instagram now compared to Instagram at the very beginning would have been completely different.
Yeah.
How... I get a sense there's like a major emphasis now on collaborations. That's part of being someone who's been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
How do you view your marketing strategy now? Is it all just about the photos and getting as much of it out there as possible?
Yeah, it's a good question as well, because I don't love the marketing side of things. That's why I have One Day Dream. So that to me is like, here, have that whole entire side of my business. And they're unbelievable at what they do. So I really do focus on my Instagram and putting up my projects. And that's kind of my strategy. That's how easy it is. I like working on clients. I love getting beautiful photography, and I just post them on my Instagram. Yeah. That's how genuine it is.
Well, how do most people come to you? Is it via Instagram, the website?
Instagram. Yeah, Instagram.
Yeah. Do you have staff?
I've got someone who works with me on all the installs, and I've got Bianca, who is like almost like a bit of a PA for me. And then I've got obviously the One Day Dream team, and then I've got all of my tradies as well. So I've got my cabinetry guy, I've got my electricians, I've got my painters. So that's kind of the team, I guess. But
that is nice. No obligations, no wages to pay during COVID.
No, but that's the thing as well. Like, people said, how do you grow the business? But I don't want to have 5 staff working for me. I could think of nothing worse.
No, I think we've had this discussion internally that I read a book called Small Giants. And did you know that Hermès has only like maybe 100 to 500 staff globally? For the size of the business that it is, it's something like tiny. And you look at Louis Vuitton and they have like tens of thousands. That's just for the Louis. Well, because it's a family run business that has only really focused on getting better at improving design as opposed to just hiring more people.
Yeah, right.
I really like the idea of just increasing your prices as opposed to increasing headcount to get more money in the door. And it means that you work on less projects that you enjoy more with people who are more serious.
Yeah.
And so that really intrigues me. There's a brewery in San Francisco that sort of started the micro, pale ale type brewery trend in San Francisco back in the day. And instead of just increasing the staff to get more bottles out, they just started doing limited releases. So it became more and more like a luxury good.
Yeah.
And I really, really like that. I think...
well, that's how I see my business. Like, I want to have better clients and just focus on less clients but have better clients, which is where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I don't want to have, I'd rather have 2 really good clients than 10.
Of course, yeah. I would 100% agree with that. And the more staff you have, the less you can do that as well.
Yeah, because I'm also a bit... Yeah, true. Because I'm a little bit controlling, I do find it hard anyway to hand over the reins of what I do. So I just would rather do it myself.
That is exactly like Lauren as well. Yeah, she really struggles with that, handing over. Yeah. So you have to have someone that you trust. And finding another creative like that is very hard.
I agree.
During all this COVID, what's it been like for you, apart from the homeschooling?
Well, business is booming for, the interiors world. It's gone crazy. Like, if you talk to King Furniture, places like that, their budgets have gone crazy because people are not spending money on holidays. They're spending it on couches.
Yeah.
So interiors as well, like, people are in their houses and they're happy to spend money on interiors at the moment. So we're getting a lot of inquiries, and I'm super, super busy with clients, which is a really good thing. On the other hand, I feel like I just want to slow down because the kids are at home and I almost just want to be there for them. So it's a bit stressful. But I feel bad to complain that I'm so busy, but it is stressful juggling.
Yeah, in your own world, it definitely is. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get out of there, particularly like last night. Yesterday I made the fatal mistake of deciding to have a nap in the afternoon for just even 20. I normally meditate, but I had a nap for 30 minutes because I was tired.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep last night. Couldn't sleep till 3 a.m.
No.
I think
that's a rookie mistake to make.
Well, like during all this as well, because you're so sedentary as well, you can't really leave the house much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really like I've just noticed more and more you're in your bubble more. It's very hard to get it until you turn on the news, watch the news, get your updates.
How much do you love the news? God. 5 o'clock, I'm like on that news, see what the numbers are, see what Trump has said, see what Kanye's doing. Yeah,
good old Kanye. It's funny because like I predominantly watch YouTube. So we've got Apple TV, we watch YouTube and Netflix and all that. But it's funny how the news has made its way back onto YouTube with their little clips, their little 2 to 3 minute clips. And they know how to do clickbait really well because they've done it for decades. Running the news. So, the first thing that comes up on my dashboard on YouTube is breaking news. And it's like you get the morning clips and you get the evening clips as well.
And how dramatic do they make everything sound?
Well, it's really interesting because I remember, do you remember when everyone was saying, we're going to have stage 4? Actually, this last week has been fascinating for me, right? Because I'm fascinated by not so much propaganda, but persuasion and messaging. And so I remember on the Monday last week, Brett Sutton, who's the chief medical officer, spoke about the fact that stage 4, it's not off the table. Elimination could be a good thing to look at, right?
Yeah. And
I knew then and there when he said that, 2 days later, if there's nothing else going on, the media is going to pivot to that and it's going to get all the more dramatic. So by Wednesday, the media is saying, we're going to be in stage 4 lockdown by the end of the week. And then I was having conversations with friends who all of a sudden are working for the Victorian government in the Department of Health and telling me, I'm hearing whispers that we're going to be in lockdown by Sunday. I'm like, no, we're not. You don't know what you're talking about because like the actual curve of the numbers had been broken. If you actually looked at the data, the growth rates had basically started to plateau like it is now. But it is fascinating how when people are stuck inside the house, they become professionals in epidemiology.
I know. So many rumors going around. I know.
Do you remember? I sort of remember.
That's why you can't believe anything, really.
Oh, you can't. You can't. All you can do is look at the numbers and the actual data coming out and make a rational decision on it. I remember in March, I just can't believe I fell for this shit. Someone saying, oh, they're calling up the Army Reserve and they're going to bring the Army in. And I remember telling my parents this and thinking like, this is surreal. And it never happened. But you can you don't know. It's just all, people absolutely love gossip. I love it.
I know, same. I love it too. I love it.
There's something innate about it, and I feel like social media and at least COVID has sort of accentuated it. What does the future look like when you think about the next 6 to 12 months? What does that look like for you?
I think it's going to be a very busy 6 to 12 months for me. Yeah. It's funny because I never feel like I'm in a slump with work. It's always busy.
Yeah.
I'd love to just be cooking and vacuuming all day. I just got a new Dyson. That's just giving me so much joy. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Which one did you get?
I got the V11 Absolute.
Okay. Yeah.
What have you got?
You went all out. I can't remember. It was some $400, $500 Dyson that my partner sold me on. I just know that you're 100% correct about anything interiors because in this entire period since March, I've invested in a bar. So I've got a full-on bar downstairs now. So if guests come in, I can make them a cocktail on top of the tea and espresso and all that. We got a new couch because we moved the wedding. So a nice new Brosa handmade couch.
Do you say Brosa? I say Brossa.
Brosa.
Tomato. Yeah. I say Brossa.
I know Rich, the founder.
He's lovely. Does he say Brosa?
I was just told by their marketing person at July that it's Brosa. So we got that. We've upgraded stuff in the studio, the room. My partner has gone nuts on Facebook Marketplace.
She's doing that too.
She's become a queen at, I've taught her how to really, really sell. Which has been very interesting because she used to want to just get it out of her hands, but now we'll have things sitting in sort of like a pile near the front door and she's willing to wait an extra 30 days just to get that sale at the right price. And what else? We got a new TV unit. We've gotten everything. Apple TV. It's like we've basically shed all of the hand-me-down stuff that we had from my parents and her parents over the years. And we've finally become true adults. Finally, at the age of 30.
How does it feel?
It feels great. It feels good to finally have our own style permeate through the house other than just our room.
But doesn't it actually seriously give you happiness?
Yeah, it makes the place feel like your own.
Yeah.
Like we had, God, if I could show you this photo. You know, the old Victorian or Federation style houses, and they have my parents built that in Brighton when they built this massive house, and they got this furniture and the couches, they're probably they were 20, 25 years old, and I don't know how to describe the texture of it, but it was sort of it was maroon with green, yellow, and some other sort of coloring, like a pattern. And it was it wasn't wool, it wasn't cotton, but it was some sort of furry material. And you see them a lot of in Federation. No, it's definitely not mid-century. It's definitely not. It's turn of the century.
Right.
It is definitely that Federation style of furniture. And we had that for so long, for 20 years. We were the only people in our friendship group that had a couch like that. It was
that sounds kind of cool.
It was cool. I remember there was the girl who bought it. She sort of she's in her 20s, very hipster, very into antiques.
Yeah.
And she bought it from us. But it was so banged up. I mean, the whole bottom was ripped out from my parents' cat that used to sort of claw into it and then jump up into the bottom of the couch and just basically...
But people love stuff like that because it's a project and making it new again. Like that's massive. That's a massive thing
huge.
at the moment as well. That's another whole discussion. Absolutely
huge. But it did... it was nice because our style is definitely like not so much Scandinavian mid-century, but mid-century, very Mad Men.
Yes. I can see in the back those chairs.
Yeah.
That's very Mad Men.
I have a very nice, I loved the armchair that my parents had. It was, again, in that similar style, but we just upgraded it to more mid-century. I love meditating in that big armchair. It's very, very relaxing.
Lovely.
So, yeah, I'd agree. That whole period has sort of accentuated people investing in this sort of stuff. So instead of the tourism industry crushing it, it seems like interior design and housing will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I want to jump into some rapid fire questions for you to finish things off.
Oh, rapid fire.
Now, the key to this is actually answering fast. That's
okay.
The key. The last Jade and Lana did not. So
okay, I'm not going to overthink things.
Okay. Morning routine. What does that look like?
Get up, have my shake, look at my phone, get the kids to school.
NutriBullet?
Yes.
Okay. Which one have you got? The black one?
No, it's more like silver at the bottom.
Okay. Is it like you press down or has it got a button?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, press down.
Evening routine. What does that look like?
Whatever's on, Bachelor in Paradise, The Voice. I'm a massive TV fan. And then once that's finished, I'll then flick over to Netflix. Okay.
If you were to pick like a doco, a TV show, a movie that you've been watching of late during all this isolation, what would it be?
I've just watched a beautiful Spanish one called The Girls from Ipanema, which I loved. I'm watching This Is Us at the moment. Fauda, which is a bit more Mossad. Love that. I love anything like that. I love anything that's like got the drug trade in it. I don't know why. I find that fascinating. I can watch anything. Like that's what I do at night. I do not take my phone with me anywhere. That's why I just switch off from that whole Instagram and I'm straight onto Netflix. My husband says that I put the, what do you call it?
Take out one plug and put in another?
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what I do. I mean, that's my haven in my room watching Netflix.
Okay. Wow, so you're relegated to your room. You've been
that's my best. In my room, in my bed.
Yeah.
That's my favourite.
Okay, so who has the lounge then?
My husband.
Okay.
He'll be watching footy stuff.
Who does he barrack for?
Carlton. We are big Carlton fans.
Yeah. Okay. Best purchase under $200, and it could have been at any point in time, but it's helped you during this ISO period.
Oh God, under 200.
And it can't be a tape measure.
Well, I tell you what I have just purchased. It was only $60. Do you know Hilton Carter?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know him?
I know of him.
So Hilton Carter is a massive plant guru in America, and he's just brought out a beautiful book called Wild Interiors. And I just purchased that because I love plants and greenery. So that was my purchase that I just made last week.
I feel like my mother-in-law has, is it like a coffee table book?
Yeah, shall I get it?
Yeah, let's have a look.
It's got the most beautiful front cover.
Yeah, it looks really familiar.
Isn't
someone has this book. I just can't remember who has it.
Things like that make me very happy.
Yeah. What do you think is it with that makes you so happy? Is it because like there's this saying in Scandinavia they call it hygge, like that feeling of pure comfort by a fire, being cozy inside. What is it for you?
Well, when talking about like a product, I think it's definitely the way it looks for me. You know, this is in my lounge room, on my coffee table, and when I come in there, I look at the front cover of it.
But a lot of the photos are sort of similar to what you'd see on your, not sort of your muse, but Callie Worsler's Instagram. It's sort of that beautiful interior look. There's something about it. I don't know how to describe it, but like it gives you a sort of feeling of warmth.
And, you know, it gives you that feeling of kind of when we've cleaned up the house and everything's in place.
That's what it is.
And everything's coordinated. It just gives people happiness. Honestly, that's what it is.
Yeah, the conscientiousness coming out again.
Yeah.
What has been your sort of go-to item in the fridge or meal during the lockdown period?
There is a great Haagen-Dazs Brownie Macchiato.
Wow.
That is to die for.
I do like Haagen-Dazs.
Eating a lot of the Haagen-Dazs is the best, no?
Yeah. I think it's better than Ben and Jerry's, that's for sure.
It's much better than Ben and Jerry's.
Connoisseur used to be good, but it's really sweet now.
Yeah, I don't love that either. Try that Haagen-Dazs Brownie Macchiato. Doesn't get better.
Yeah. That's the thing about ice cream. It has to be more dairy. Like that's a really bad thing about Australian dairy sort of sweets now. Like if you have Cadbury now,
sweet.
It's too sweet. Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Lauren's family is German and Polish, right? So they go to Aldi all the time. They'll buy all sorts of German branded or Eastern European branded chocolate, and you can taste it. Like Whittaker's is great because it's not like Cadbury.
Yes.
Yes. But if you buy like chocolate from Aldi is amazing. It's how chocolate should be. It's got nuts in it. It's very creamy. You barely taste the sugar.
It's not sugary. I totally agree. I can't eat all that Cadbury. I'm a dark chocolate kind of girl. So I love maybe even the Lindt, like 85%, but I could never eat that Cadbury stuff.
Yeah,
so sickly.
But it's changed. It's only been a recent thing in the last decade or so, which is disappointing. All right, last question for you. If you could have a billboard anywhere in Melbourne, where would it be? First of all, placement's key, I think. And what would you put on it?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, the only billboard that I can really think of that comes to mind is, you know, the St Kilda Junction where Fitzroy Street is?
Yep.
You know, the billboard
the big one.
Yeah. That's probably where I would like to be.
Okay.
What
no
would be on
No one's
it?
ever mentioned that spot. It's an underrated spot, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, where are I don't even know where more billboards are. That's the only one I can think of.
The cliche one is the Swan Street Bridge on Punt Road when you go under the railway bridge up towards Clifton Hill. That's a big one. And then there's the airport. Everyone talks about the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And there's the one at Flinders Street, Swanson Street, sort of square at Fed Square where it crosses over, and it's that one that wraps around the Young and Jackson. It's all digital now.
Yeah.
But that one is as a classic because I remember it used to have that. I remember when that Calvin Klein ad with Justin Bieber came out.
Yeah.
And it was there for like a year.
Yeah.
And that was like when that spot got made. But if you're heading towards the southeastern suburbs, it's the billboard that everyone knows.
Yeah.
So what would you...
I'm very eclectic like that.
What would you put on it?
So it has to be something to do with me. Is that right?
Doesn't have to be. Could be anything.
What I put on it? I would just put my face on it. I don't know what I would put on it. Maybe if it didn't have to do with anything to do with business or me, I would put like puppy golden retrievers.
Puppy golden retrievers.
Like 5.
I like that. Do you guys have a family dog?
We've got 2 dogs.
Okay. What breed
They're Cavadors.
Cavadors.
Yeah, so that's Cavalier crossed with a lab.
Wow.
They look like mini labs.
That's cool. We had a chocolate
But
lab
my
growing
next
up.
dog is, I love chocolate labs.
Yeah.
My next dog is definitely a golden retriever.
Yeah, there's something about golden retrievers that they're just so smiley.
Oh,
You can never
that's
really
why I
hate
need
them.
my Dyson.
That
I'm
is
already preempting the hair.
that is a reason. That's the reason why I will never get a golden retriever, because my partner's she seems to react to like cats and dogs with like long hair. So she's always had like schnauzers and stuff in their family, which I used to hate because I used to think they were like little yappy shits. But she convinced me otherwise. With
You
their
could
dog.
have a pug. Pugs
Oh
are cute.
no, I can't deal with the whole breathing thing.
The breathing, the breathing. It is annoying.
All right, Nicole, thank you for doing this and commandeering your daughter's room. I think it is.
Thank you. Yes, it is. This is the one at school.
Where can people find you on the interwebs?
So on Instagram, it's liberty.interiors.
Yep.
And website is libertyinteriors.com.au.
Okay. We'll make sure we link all of that, of course. But Nicole Rosenberg, thanks for coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching Uncommon and this week's episode. If you like it, smash that like button. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, please do subscribe. We would love that. We'd love to build this audience that we're growing here of Uncommoners. If you want to keep up to date with audio, you can search for us on all of your good podcast apps. It's Uncommon or Uncommon Show. Will typically find us. For social, you want to see behind the scenes this amazing studio that I'm sitting in. Just search at Uncommon_show. And everything will be there, including our weekly promos. But look, thanks so much for stopping by. Until next time, thanks for watching.